Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, my dear viewers, brothers and sisters of IQRA TV. I hope so far you found this program of illuminating and interesting. We're talking about something really serious today, and that is something that Muslims face on a day-to-day basis. Muslims in this country are being vilified, and I'm not sure whether you saw one of my programs some moons ago, quite a while ago, around the report that came out that was done by Dame Louise Casey around cohesion, integration, etc., which is having some deep resonance with its impact on communities across the country. And Bradford's one of them. And it talks about how we are, ghettoizing ourselves from the rest of the community, and we're not integrating. And there are people in our communities who are not seen to be part of the wider British society. So there are some huge issues that affect Muslims on a day-to-day basis. Today we want to focus around, and we've been talking with Sale Suleiman, my guest, around hate crime. Sale, when we went for the break, we talked about the importance of reporting hate crime. I mean, how important in your view is it that people out there, who are victims of anti-Muslim hate crime, no matter how insignificant it may seem to them, that they do report it? I know if you get thousands of them, it'll put pressure on the system, there's no doubt about it, and the system is already at breaking point. But should that prevent people from reporting?
I think you've touched on a very important point there. It's very important that people, communities of interest, and we're talking about anti-Muslim hate crime, we have seen and we do see an increase of anti-Muslim hate crime taking place when we have local, national, international or geopolitical events. Post-Brexit, when that was happening, comments were being made towards sisters and brothers on an anti-Islamic Muslim perspective. And we continuously engage with people, we talk to communities from any kind of walk of life to report these incidents. What we are finding is that the reports from the sisters and brothers sometimes are very reluctant to come forward, and it's important. I mean, what I can say is it's important that we get a picture of what's taken place. When I meet with certain partners, including the police, for example, I'll give you a quick example of the work we've done with the taxi industry. Now, I've brought with me here at the moment is the Calderdale Taxi Handbook.
All right.
This has now been operating now in Calderdale now for the last 4 years. I've been training with a colleague called Nadine Mir from Tomden, who's ex-retired Chief Inspector Greater Manchester Police.
Right.
And we've been working with the taxi industry. So we've been talking to all of the base operators,
these are
the taxi drivers.
Taxi drivers are victims quite often.
Yeah, people who are out and about in the nighttime economy during a Friday, Saturday night will quite often talk to me and say that they've been a victim of hate crime, racism was taking place, the religion was mimicked, etc., or the clothing that they were wearing was essentially the targeted. What we are saying to people is what we need to do is we need to ensure that these reports are made.
Right.
Now, when I go and speak to the police and I say, well, I've been to a meeting and we have now trained over 1,500 taxi drivers, operators and base operators and license holders on the taxi trade. And I've been to many of the base operators to speak to them to make the process more simplified. And what I have said is, quite simply, if you are the victim of racism, anti-Islamic rhetoric, that it's important that you report it.
Right.
Because when I sit with senior police or the council, etc., and I talk about the conversations being had, and they go back and look at the data shows that there's only been a number of incidents, not as high as I'm saying.
Right.
When we get together with the taxi community as an example, the taxi community will say to me is, every single day or during the weekend, we always have trouble.
Right.
We have remarks and comments made towards us, either based upon race or religion, but they're not reporting it.
Right. So if you're watching in Calderdale, I hope you can see this booklet. This is a really important initiative that Sale and his colleagues have taken. It reinforces the fact that the Muslim community needs to start reporting every incident as a hate crime if they feel that they're the victims of a hate crime. And they're victims because they're either Muslim or because they're of a different race, colour. And let me tell you this. The Jewish community in this country numbers around 350,000. And I'm sure Sale will help me out here. Sorry, coming back to this, somebody's asking me what's the book called. Calderdale Taxi Drivers Handbook. So this is specifically for taxi drivers in Calderdale. I'm sure from a quick glance that I've seen in here, every other taxi driver throughout the country would benefit from the advice that is contained in here. So if you don't have one in your neighbourhood, in your district, ask them to contact Calderdale Council, ask for Sales Suleiman, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to share the information with your district wherever you may be. But coming back, the Jewish community in this country numbers around 350 to 380,000. The Jewish community have structured themselves in such a way that every incident, great or small, is reported into a central location, and that is then channeled to the government. So if you look at the number of incidents, of hate incidents against Jewish community, and I strongly oppose anti-Semitism. Anybody who is an anti-Semite has got no truck with me. We have, as Muslims, we cannot be discriminating against any community. So I strongly oppose anti-Semitism, right, and supports any initiative to tackle anti-Semitism. But the message I'm trying to give is that the Jewish community have structured themselves in such a way, they've organized themselves in such a way that every incident, regardless of how big or small it is reported into a central bank, as they call it, a central location, and that data is then collected and then it's reflected to the government. So it shows very clearly that there's a very organized way of doing it, and perhaps we need to learn from our Jewish brothers and sisters as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well, yeah, I mean, there is something called the CST structure, which is the Community Security Trust. Yes. That's right. And I've spoken to colleagues from the CST to look at how they've been recognising to actually report these incidents and crimes. And what's clear, the evidence shows is that within the family structures, they talk about anti-Semitism. Right. So if something happens either on the bus, which we talked about, the transport industry or the train industry, where incidents and crimes take place, it's very important that we get the reports coming through. And you've also got, for example, your normal structures, for example, the council of mosque that we have in Calderdale, in Bradford, etc. We should be looking at how to engage with our brothers and sisters in them communities. We have young children coming through the madrasas that we should be talking to as well. That any form of hate crime that we're talking about, across the board, we should be tackling it. Because if we don't tackle it, that then manifests itself to becoming far more of a bigger problem. So it's important that we get the reports coming through, no matter how trivial we think things are. If a comment's made about, for example, the hijab, someone wearing the clothing, a comment about Islam, then let's report it. Right. Let those people who are professionals deal with it. So people like myself who are working with the police and partners can then look at them incidents. We can know where they're taking place, and what we can do is provide the appropriate support. And where things aren't working, it's very important that you do report it through to ourselves, because we can be the conduit.
You got another leaflet there called "Report It, Sort It, Say
I have,
No to Hate." What is that about?
This is the hate crime reporting. It's supported by West Yorkshire Police. I mean, you can see on here, probably for those, if I can zoom into it, you've got the various different religions, the symbols. For example, there's the crescent on here. You've got the Hindu symbol, etc., sexual orientation, race, anybody who wants to report something. The leaflet is quite simple. Any incident that takes place, a crime, we want you to report it. And where to report, on the back of here, it shows you that you can report it through the 101 number. You can contact the local hate crime coordinators, people like myself, or you can go through the online reporting as well. So to make it more simplified, if you were to report it via the police's, West Yorkshire Police's online reporting system, it will take you no more than 5 minutes to put your report in. It provides you a reference number, log number, and then the police would make contact with you to take a statement or to progress it further. Right. The other thing that we're also offering is, if someone does not want to report the incident of crime...
The leaflet is on the screen, by the way, we've put it on the screen. So if you see it, the number is there, 101. And as Sales said, it is important that every one of us, wherever you are, not just in Calderdale, wherever you are in the country, you're watching, I plead with you that if we're going to make a difference and we're going to tackle this issue around anti-Muslim hate crime, we need to make sure that every incident is reported, as Sales said, no matter how big or small. Because until and unless we gather that evidence and present it across all the institutional organisations, we will not see much difference taking place. Sorry, Sale, carry on.
The other factor is, if someone wants to report it anonymously, we have that structure in place as well.
Right.
So if you came to me today, Iqbal Bhai, to report a hate crime, and you asked me to keep your details confidential and anonymous, I can put the hate crime report on your behalf in.
Right.
But I would have the data. I send the data to the police as well, and that would get recorded. So it might be a location where we're picking up. It's happening there quite often. There are people reporting them crimes and incidents, and then what we would do is look at that data so we can actually put it in. Now, say 3 months down the line, you decide to take it further. So the person who's been victimising you, harassing you, intimidating you, what we would do is then you can come back to myself or the police and say, listen, 3 months ago I reported a hate crime. The person is still continuing to cause me alarm, distress and harassment, and I want something done with it. Then what we can do is go back into our records to look at, on this date, that report was made, and therefore what we can do is take it to the next step and take some action with it.
So you can build up a picture as well.
That's correct.
Right, and obviously that's very important. Do you have victim support services in your area?
We have, yes.
And how robust is that?
We work,
I know that's been decimated over the last few years as well.
Yeah, we work very closely with Victim Support Scheme. We have Victim Support Scheme officers on the Hate Crime Partnership who come to our meetings, and we are working very, very closely.
The victim, for those who have not come across victim support is there to help victims of crime. We are unfortunately running out of time. We're just getting to the interesting part. But let me just go back. The most important point from the night is, if you are the victim of anti-Muslim hate crime, you need to report it. As Sale says, there are different mechanisms of reporting it. One of the other mechanisms which has not been mentioned today is True Vision. If you go online, there's a government portal where online it's called True Vision, and you can report your hate crime there. Wherever you are in the country, that report will be taken and then it's sent to the appropriate police force. So if you're in Birmingham, it will be sent to the West Midlands Police. If you're in Berkshire, it will be sent to the police in that area. If you're in Manchester or in Lancashire, it will go to the Greater Manchester Police or Lancashire Constabulary. So it is important, especially I urge young people, if you are the victims of any form of hate incident, whether it's verbal, physical, whatever, if it's serious, dial 999. But otherwise, please make sure you report it. We now come to the end of the program. Unfortunately, I've been told we've run out of time. Sale, thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry, this is a really interesting program. Let's make sure we come back again very soon on this issue, because this is a serious issue we need to tackle. In the meantime, take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah be with you and make du'as for every one of us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.